So here's a little review of my 2015 Honda Accord. This is actually the first car that I've owned myself. It's the first car I actually bought. And I drove, several cars throughout high school, and really was fortunate enough to have a couple cars that my parents kind of let me drive when I was in college. And anything from like a minivan to like an older Nissan Maxima. So kind of got lucky there, and then pretty much had to get my own car. So this is the first car that I bought. This is a 2015 Honda Accord. It's the EXL version, so it has leather seats, and it's an automatic transmission. It has the 2.4 non-turbo engine, which is supposedly a little bit more reliable than the V6 engine that Honda has in some of these cars and the touring models. This car did have a rebuilt title, as I kind of have been talking about in some of my other videos. I'll go ahead and get started here driving, but it's actually April. It's April, and it snowed. It's a little bit of snow, so the weather next week looks like it's going to be in the 60s and 70s and nice, so that's good. But a little bit of snow this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, this car did have a rebuilt title. I think it was in some sort of accident on the passenger side door, and it was replaced. So I've always looked for kind of rebuilt titles, because a lot of times it's kind of a minor thing that totals the car out, and then the value of the car, it's still 95% the same car. I think the guy just had to put on a different door, which is the only difference. And you wouldn't know unless you looked at the title. You can't tell at all from looking outside. It's only a really minor difference if you look under the car. So I got a pretty good deal on this car. I bought it with 18,000 miles, or 18,500 miles about 4 years ago. I mean, I don't drive all that much, and I've only put about 30,000 miles on it. So it has a little less than 50,000 miles now. But it's been a great car, no issues. I've changed the oil every like 4,000 to 5,000 miles, and pretty much other than that, I haven't had to do anything. Still the same set of tires. There was some issues with like the forward collision warning system, and I actually did have to get my valves adjusted. I was getting this is kind of right after I bought the car, so all in all, I had to spend about $1,000 extra to I got an alignment, I got my valves adjusted, and then I kept getting lights that came up on the dash. It was some electrical thing, but they were able to figure that out at Honda, and for the last 20,000 miles probably, I haven't had any sort of issue at all. So, and I only paid I think I paid $13,700 for this car when it was 2 years old with 18,500 miles on it. So all in all, I think it's great. It's something that will probably easily last to 200,000 miles, if not much more than that. So it'll last a really long time. And if you divide the cost of ownership, if you spent $15,000 on the car, and then you're going to own it for 15 years or 20 years, you're only spending about $1,000 a year if you over the period. So, and plus, it doesn't have navigation. It's a pretty it has some of the nicer touches. It does have the leather. This is the EXL version. The 4-cylinder engine, it's not overly fast, but it's still not slow. I mean, you can go, I think I've gone up to about 100 miles an hour in it. I don't really need to go faster than that, but and it gets great gas mileage. This particular car, I can tell you right now, on this particular drive, I've gotten 31 miles a gallon. When I'm driving more on I did a trip when I was pretty much on the freeway the whole time. I got 37 miles per gallon, as you can see there on the little trip meter. 500 miles, I got 37 miles per gallon. And then I got 38.6 miles per gallon going 532 miles. So this thing's really good on gas, and you're not going to have to spend a lot of money on gas. You can probably go about 500 miles per tank. It's typically only about $40 to $45 to fill up the entire tank too, so no issues there. As far as the features, it does have, I'm not going to turn the radio on because I don't want the music to start playing, but it does have XM radio, so I have that in this car, so that's a nice feature. Most of the newer cars are going to have the XM Sirius radio hookup, but it's nice to have it. It does have Bluetooth connection, which is great. You know, this is the first car that I've actually driven that has had Bluetooth, so you can hook up your phone to it, and you can, if you're getting a phone call, you can just answer it on the screen and it'll play through your car, so you don't have to pick up your phone, you don't have to take your hands off of the steering wheel. You can answer the phone. Actually, I think you can answer the phone on your wheel. I usually just hit it on the screen, and then you can hang up the call on your wheel as well, so that's nice. Obviously, it does have cruise control. I mean, there's not like a bunch of extra features in this car, but it's a Honda Accord, right? They've been making the car for such a long time. It's a tried and true car that is going to last a long time. It's going to get you where you need to go. And again, it does have the Bluetooth. It does have Sirius XM. It still does have a CD player if you're into that old technology. And then everything else is pretty standard. When I was looking for a car, you know, my parents were kind of pushing to get a crossover vehicle, and I thought to myself, you know, I probably don't need something that big. It's not like I do a bunch of, I don't really do a lot of, you know, things where I need a car that big. And this car obviously is a 4-door because it's the Accord, so I really would have been fine getting like a coupe or just getting a 2-door, but because the amount of times that I've had passengers in the back of my car is, I've probably only had just a few times have I ever had really multiple people in my car. I mean, sometimes I'll have a passenger, but they always sit up front. And then it's very rare that I'm going to have more than 2 people with me, so, or more than one other person with me. So the back seat is just immaculate. This car in general, like, is very clean. I don't put dogs in here. I'm not hauling a bunch of stuff. The car, I have my jacket up here, but other than that, it's like the car is pretty much new. It's very clean, and it's in good condition. And I like that. It does have electric seat, so you can power seats, and there's 2 different options for kind of doing the presets on that. Again, everything's pretty standard on this car, but if you're looking for, you know, I like the leather seat option and having kind of the leather wheel, and everything looks very clean and crisp in here with the black, with just the black on black inside. And I haven't had any issues with the car. You know, looking back now, I kind of wish I would have maybe gotten one with a manual transmission, but at the time, I didn't really think about that. I was just looking for a car, and obviously I didn't really know too much about cars because I had never bought a car. I had just kind of been driving cars that my parents had kind of let me drive because they had a bunch of cars, and then by the time I graduated college, I kind of needed a car just to do whatever I was doing. And you know, I guess when you're buying a car and you only have one car, and you're going to be driving it, you know, wherever, you don't want to buy something old and have that be the only car you have. You want to have something relatively newer and reliable and kind of has the modern technology in it. So that's what I was looking for. I'm happy that I went with a Honda. I also looked at a Toyota Camry of similar era. I think it was like a 2014 or 2016. It might have been, I think it was actually a 2016. So the car at the time was only a year old. I actually was going to go buy that car, but the guy was asking like $17,500, and he didn't want to negotiate at all off that price. So I went and looked at the car. It was really nice, and I'm sure it would have been a great car as well, but I found this one for about $4,000 cheaper, and it had less miles. And when I drove it, I really liked it. It had, like I said, it had the XM radio. It doesn't have the lane warnings. I was kind of disappointed it didn't have that, because I drove a couple cars that was kind of newer, like 6 or 7 years ago, for the cars to have that, that light when you're switching lanes. And I think that's a great safety feature, and I'm sure it'll be on almost all the cars now. But yeah, you want to be able to have a beeping or like a flashing if you're trying to get into a lane or merge and there's a car there, because sometimes you can really prevent an accident if you have that warning system, lane departure or warning system, or whatever it is. It just senses another car, and it's going to basically tell you, hey, you shouldn't get over, or you need to make sure that it's good to get over. And so this doesn't have it. It has kind of something that's, I don't think it's really beneficial, which is this, like, right now you can't even see it, but it's this mirror. It only works when you turn the turn signal to the right. It'll show you, there's a camera in that side mirror, and it gives you the view of that. But right now you can't even see it because it's wet. So it's not very, I think it's kind of I guess it's kind of a cool feature, but I don't really think it has much practicality or use. Let's see, anything else? It does have the seat warmers, and you can put it on the low setting or the high setting. It does have and everything's very standard, 12 volt. It has a place to charge your phone if you want to do that with the USB. Decent amount of storage in here. Not a lot of storage, but it does have a center console. And it does have this, I think maybe most Hondas have this econ button. I personally have just left it off because I don't want to be messing with the engine to try to get better gas mileage. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I just have left it off. I already get pretty good gas mileage as it is. I can tell you right now that I've been on my trip B. I think I've started this when I bought the car, so I think I've gone about I think it's about 24,000 miles that I've gone, because it's rolled over twice. It went to 10,000, then it went to 10,000 again, and then it went to 4,790. So I don't know if Honda is, I don't know if that keeps track of all of the miles, or maybe once it goes to 10,000, it resets it and it goes back to zero. But my miles per gallon off of what I think is like 25,000 miles is about 33.6 miles per gallon, based on going about 25,000 miles in this car. So that's really good. I don't drive the car fast. I typically, when I'm on the freeway, I'm in the right lane. I don't really feel comfortable going like 80 miles an hour. Most people here don't drive overly fast. It's not like it's California or anything, but I still try to go like 65 to 70 in the right-hand lane, and I'll just let people pass me, because I'm not trying to ever be in some sort of dangerous situation. And this car really isn't, it's not like it's a race car or anything, so I don't need to be going 80 miles an hour all the time on the freeway. I might go 70, 75 sometimes, but that's about as fast as I'll ever go. I don't really feel the need to go faster than that. I really do like the steering wheel. It's very, I like the fact that I can hold it with one hand at the bottom. Some of the other wheels, you can't fit your hand in here, or there's not even a cutout here, but you can put your hand in a lot of different positions on the bottom because there's cutouts. And then, the classic 10 and 2 position, there's these perfect spot to put your hands. That's very comfortable. So I really do like the steering wheel, which makes this car, nice to drive when it has and the steering's very good. It's not it's perfect. You can tell the difference when you drive like when you drive a car I've driven a couple older cars that don't have power steering at all, and the steering's very heavy, and it's just a completely different experience. Everything in this car is pretty smooth. The suspension's solid. It's not overly smooth, I would say. You still are going to feel some of the bumps, but you know, for this type of car, it's, you know, just kind of a standard economy Accord, right? They've sold so many of these cars because, you know, they're really quality, well-built cars that last a long time that are relatively inexpensive, right? It's a great value for the money. And it has a good amount of trunk capacity back there. You can fit, you're not going to be able to fit like anything that you would into like a station wagon or a truck, but you know, you can fit a decent amount of stuff back there. You know, a lot of groceries, and then just kind of smaller household items. You could probably fit quite a bit back in the back there. And then again, you have the whole back seat to jam stuff in there if you want to. So I've transferred quite a bit of stuff just in this car. You know, a lot of my belongings, you know, when I moved or whatever. You can fit a decent amount of stuff in this car. But really, other than that, that's kind of the review there. It's a, you know, it's a Honda Accord. They've been making it, I think, since like the mid 70s, and this version is obviously, you know, 6 years old at this point, but I imagine it'll last a long time, and that I won't have any problems with the car for a long, long time. So that's the video on it, guys. If you're looking to buy an Accord, you know, you can consider buying one with a rebuilt title. You know, obviously some people will never do that because they don't want to, they're uncomfortable with that. I can tell you from my experience, you know, my parents have bought cars with rebuilt titles, never had an issue. And as long as you do you do a little bit of research and understand what happened to the car. And then I also took the car to a mechanic for like $120. I had him look at the car. You know, he put it up on a lift, and he was able to look at where they kind of put the new door on, and he said, yeah, you know, you can tell that they did a little bit of work here, but, you know, you're never going to be able to, no one would ever know that, and it's totally structurally sound. So I got a good deal because a lot of people just aren't interested in buying a rebuilt title car because it's been in an accident. And the guy that was selling it, you know, I'm pretty sure he ran like a business of buying cars that were wrecked and fixing them. So I'm sure he made a little bit of money on it as well. But, you know, it works out for everyone. And I plan on, you know, if I were trying to sell this car, it would be a little bit maybe more challenging to sell it because, again, it's just another story that a potential buyer is going to get scared away from, or they're like, you know what, I'd rather just spend an extra couple $1,000s and go buy a car that has maybe more miles, but it doesn't have a rebuilt title, and I know that it's, you know, clean from the factory. So that's kind of the two sides of the coin there. But, you know, you could probably pick up this car for, you know, right around $10,000 now with probably around the same amount of miles, maybe a little bit higher. And they're really well built cars. They'll last a long time, and you know, as long as you just keep up on the basic maintenance, same with any car, and you don't kill it, you don't drive it crazy, then it'll last a long time. So that's the video, guys. If you're new to the channel, feel free to, you know, drop a comment. What was your first car? I'm curious. There's always a lot of stories on people's first cars. I felt like I got pretty lucky. You know, I bought a pretty new car as kind of like my first car. You know, of course, I had driven a lot of other cars before, but they weren't really my car, and you know, it was kind of just maybe a hand-me-down from my parents or something like that. So this is a really quality first car that will probably last me a very long time, and is not going to really cause any issues. But hey, I'm curious, what was your guys' first car? Why did you buy it? You know, a lot of people probably buy their first car because it's a car and it's cheap, right? But there's always an interesting story behind how someone gets their first car, and really every car after that. But anyway, guys, Give the video a like if you want. Comment on kind of what your first car experience was, and as always, be safe and have a great day.